Welcome to the CDFA Hotline. My name is Kristin Shearin, and I'm very glad that you're here with us today. The purpose of this show is to provide general information about divorce and financial issues and to highlight the CDFA Financial Analyst designation, to show you how CDFA professionals can help people make better informed decisions during and after divorce. Before we begin, a very quick but important reminder, nothing discussed on this show is legal, tax, or personalized financial advice. Every divorce is different and outcomes can vary depending on many factors, including your state laws, your assets, your income, and the specific facts of your situation. This show is educational, not advisory, and we encourage you to seek guidance from qualified professionals in your area before making major decisions. My guest today is Debbie Dorman. She is a financial advisor and a certified divorce financial analyst based in Georgia. Debbie has spent decades in the financial services industry, including roles with Merrill Lynch, MetLife, Wells Fargo, and now True Oak Financial Partners. She focuses her practice on women in transition, including those who are considering divorce, going through divorce, navigating gray divorce, or rebuilding after divorce. Debbie is also the creator of a boot camp for divorcing women, an educational workshop which is designed to help women better understand the aspects of divorce and assembling a team that includes good legal, financial, and emotional support during the divorce. She also launched Girl Money Mafia, which is a platform focused on helping women build confidence and take control of their financial lives. Debbie brings both technical knowledge and a practical, supportive approach to the very real money questions people face during major life transitions. Welcome, Debbie.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
All right, let's go ahead and dive right in.
Okay.
So Sharon from Jacksonville, she has spent years focused on raising children, supporting her spouse's career, and managing the household. And now suddenly she has to understand everything about money and divorce. What are 3 financial areas she should get clear on right away?
There's a bunch, but we'll stick with 3 that I encounter all the time. The first is that in spite of friends and family who love you dearly and want to be there for you, the common misconception is he must support you in the style to which you've become accustomed. And although that sounds comforting, the reality is the assets are split between 2 households. So that really, unless you were extremely wealthy, that's probably not going to be true. The second piece of misinformation I receive all the time is the retirement accounts are his, or this is in his name. And many women are not aware of the difference between separate property and marital. And if it was earned during your lifetime, barring specific differences in state laws, they may be marital. And the other part that's very challenging for women in today's world, especially if they've been out of the workforce, in most cases, you're going to have to go back to work to build. We're living longer, it's expensive to live. If you are working outside the home and have a job that cannot support you, I'm not talking about something where you're barely getting by and can't survive, but where you can thrive. We need to help you get ramped up so that you get the additional education, certification, or training so that when alimony or child support go away, we're filling the income gap.
That's great advice. Okay, Leslie from Connecticut feels intimidated by finances and she's afraid of making a costly mistake. How can she begin getting organized before she becomes overwhelmed?
Leslie, that's a great question. And this is what I tell everyone in my boot camp for divorcing women workshop and people who call me from referrals. I tell women get 4 sheets of paper. And this will help them to learn and to focus when they see an attorney and talk to a financial advisor and or CDFA. The first sheet of paper should be your life history in bullet points, not War and Peace, not the Bible, but it could look something like, I grew up in Kansas. I went to UGA. I met my husband at school. We eventually married. We agreed I would take care of the children and stay home to support his career. Bullet points now. And then start to write when things went awry. 3 years ago, he started coming home later. He lost weight. He bought a new wardrobe. I thought something was wrong. I encouraged him to go to therapy. He didn't want to go. I think there's somebody else. I've asked him to go to counseling. He doesn't want to go. And this is really important, and most people miss this. You need to have a goal for this divorce. You want to have a goal. Women tend to have this overarching fear, and am I going to be okay, without really defining what does okay look like. So one goal should always be a fair divorce. The second, if you do not have a viable career, should be I want to be able to go back to school or to obtain an additional certification, designation, training so that I can increase my income and when alimony and or child support, and I'm going to be okay financially. That's a goal. That would be the first page. The second page should be his job history. Write a resume. You don't, it's just very broad base. When we first got married, he was working for ABC company. This was his job title. I think he earned this. He worked for LMNOP and now he's with XYZ. And what that really serves for is a roadmap for the attorney to start looking. All right, he probably had a retirement plan or retirement plans. Are they still there? Did he move them, et cetera? So it's a roadmap. And if the attorney has questions about that, they can ask. And if they are an executive, as an example, they may have things that'll tip us off to look for, such as executive benefits, deferred compensation, and things that are often left off on marital balance sheets when you're going through a divorce, whether it's done intentionally or not. It just gives us additional avenues to explore. And if they're a business owner, that's a whole other set of potential things we will look at. So even if you don't know in depth, it gives us a clue. And the next sheet, number 3, should be a list of assets and liabilities. Now, keep in mind, you may be in the dark about a lot of it. Put down what you know. We have a house, we have student loans, we have business, whatever it is, just write it down. And if there are things you don't know, don't panic and freeze. Just write down, hey, I don't know all of this, or I think he may be doing this. And it's a bullet point for the attorney. And as heartbreaking as this is, even though this is devastating to you, your attorney's probably heard this 1,000 times. And doing the financial part that we do, we know where to look and how to help you so that you're prepared. And lastly, even though you think this has nothing to do with finances, it has to do with everything. The fourth sheet should be something I call the fear sheet, FEAR. Every fear you have, put it on the left side of this paper, and on the right, every possible solution, no matter how bizarre it sounds in your head. I found women like to have everything laid out in a linear way, and divorce doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have to move sideways before you can go forward. And this also is great to share with your therapist and your financial advisor, which is why I always tell women, find a female advisor because we understand your fears.
That's some of the best practical advice I think I've ever heard, those 4 sheets. So the first one is your bullet point,
Story,
highlight, list,
life story.
family experience. The second one is your husband's jobs. Third is your assets, and fourth is your fears. I think a
Yes.
lot of women are really going to benefit from that. And as a family law attorney, if somebody had walked in my office with those 4 sheets of paper, I would have been very excited.
Yeah, yeah, it helps. It helps. And it also helps save money, time and money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice. Okay. Amy from the Chicago area has not been the primary breadwinner. What should she be thinking about beyond the immediate settlement so that she can feel financially secure 1, 5, or 10 years down the road?
Women that tend to like very specific information, there's a couple of things. When she gets assets in a divorce, if she gets assets in a divorce, I can help her, or someone in my field can help her say, okay, these assets should grow at a certain amount, and explain what that is. A reasonable portfolio might return this over a period of time. You're going to be adding that. When you take this out in 15 or 18 years, this is what it should look like, and this is what we can safely take out. Now, depending again on Amy, whatever her current She says she's not been the primary breadwinner. So does that mean she is working? If she is working, how can she up her income game? And I'm always talking to women about this because so often they think I'm 50 years old. I can't do this. And yes, you can. Be fearless. And let's look at some options that we can incorporate into your financial plan because desperate people make desperate decisions. Confident women don't. And so if we can help plan to either change careers or improve her earning ability, that's very powerful.
Isn't it true Martha Stewart didn't start her company till she was 50?
Absolutely. And I have some wonderful client stories with women who have gone back in their 50s and 60s, and I can't tell you the confidence and the pride they have, and their children are proud of them too. It can help them in an array of ways.
Great. Okay, Jackie from New Hampshire wants to know what are some of the most common financial blind spots in women who are just starting the divorce process?
Willful financial ignorance. Even though we're in 2026, and I meet a lot of women who are either very well educated or just street smart. They have completely delegated, sometimes abdicated investment decision making to a spouse. They're going to have to learn. They also want to be kind and helpful in with their spouse, even to their own detriment. Unless a woman has a very good grasp on financial matters, and understands the different character of money, they need to stop discussing this with their spouse. They need to realize that person that they love very much wants that spouse's interest is their own future. They have to find and deal with people who want to protect their financial future, and that would be their attorney and a financial advisor. The other thing, because money there's always two main things, it's money and the children. And if you have a spouse that's argumentative and he starts to fight, that's a clue. Stop trying to negotiate with him. If he tells you, we're doing the divorce this way, we don't need an attorney, don't worry, I'll take care of you. You have to respond to him, that's interesting. And I know that's hard because we like to talk, but by just saying that's interesting, you are acknowledging him, but you're not engaging because it's not a battle you're going to win and it's going to make things more challenging. Talk to your attorney and talk to your financial advisor.
It is interesting in all the cases that we get how many families the woman does engage in that willful ignorance. And I think part of it is just because that's an aspect of life that men typically are not going to delegate. They're typically going to assert themselves in that role. And as a woman, you have to be equally assertive to include yourself in that role. And I think that can be challenging for a lot of women, which is why they wind up in that situation years later.
Not everyone's husband is fabulous at it, but they're taking it over anyway. It really, be always no, show me the money.
I love that. Okay, Jennifer from Oregon wants to know how to tell the difference between a settlement that looks comforting emotionally and one that's actually workable financially.
And I like that because I encounter this all the time. Many times the woman cannot tell the difference, and they need a financial advisor, a CDFA, to help lay out the facts and tell her the math may not be mathing. So sometimes it takes several conversations to have this. And I always tell women in my boot camp for divorcing women workshops that when you're under a lot of stress, you develop what I call divorce brain. And so people tell you and you nod and it falls right out of your head. That's because your emotions are here. And when you're going through this, your anxiety is here and you can't make them align. And I think you have to share things and lay it out for them and show them why this may or may not be good. And sometimes they have to sit with it and you have to go over it a few times over time before they make a decision.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's been so many studies that have been done that when you're going through anxiety and stress, you're just not hearing and processing information in a way that you would were you not going through that circumstance.
Absolutely. And I always tell them you have to be extra careful. Women get sick more when they're going through divorce. They have more fender benders. They break bones because they're very distracted. Yeah. So it
Yeah,
really is a thing.
it's reasonable. Okay, Mary is in the process of a great divorce. How should she think about dividing retirement assets when there may not be enough working years left to easily rebuild savings?
The current assets are what they are. And so I always think this is very interesting. And I frequently have this issue, obviously, with people who come to me. I have had women who are horrified a spouse may have squandered assets, made bad investments, have gambling, sex addiction, drug problems. And these are even from affluent areas. So they are what they are. If, in fact, depending on their age, skill set, and ability to learn, they're going to have to keep obviously working. Maybe we can talk about that. But some of the creative options that I think people overlook are these, particularly when it comes to housing, which has just skyrocketed since COVID. Many married couples could no longer afford to buy the home they're in today. And in some cases, women want to nest. We have to go through this on an individual basis. If you have plenty of assets, obviously you have more options. If you don't, we have to get creative. Housing is one of the biggest issues I'm coming up with in some of these divorce cases. Again, going back to get more additional education, but you are going to probably have to change, the type of dwelling, and it may not even be able to stay in the same area. So some of the things that we've discussed and I've seen people do, clients and otherwise, is if housing is a big issue, maybe you're going to just wind up with Social Security and very little. You can look at something like alternative dwelling units with your family. If you have an adult child, you could possibly build one in the back, or they can. If you build it, though, of course, you're close by, that's great, but you have to have a contract that says what happens if they divorce or sell the house and have a carve out. That can give you peace of mind. The other would be Golden Girl living. That really is a thing. You'd be surprised how many adults, even if they're not divorced, are struggling with how they're living. And sometimes it can be helpful to find another housemate or become a housemate for a period of time. I am absolutely obsessed with the tiny home communities, and I see this a lot with women. It gives them an opportunity to be independent, yet have people close by because there's a lot of women, of course, we tend to live longer, we tend to outlive spouses. And if in fact you have a community where you can have your own space, but still have someone who's willing to give you a ride to the doctor's office and check on you, that's comforting. And for a number of years, I've also looked at retirement as American expats in foreign countries. And that has become a big thing over the years. Of course, you have to check an array of things. Don't just jump into it, travel and try. You have to make sure they have a good healthcare system, it's safe politically, that type of thing. But right now, Panama is very hot and you can live very well, much, but again, not everyone's open to doing that. It's important to research all of these, but these are some unusual options that are often overlooked because they just are.
Those are some great creative suggestions. My friends and I laugh that we want to do the Golden Girl living one day. I think that sounds
But
much.
you have to have the rules, the written down. You have to be whatever to do it. But it gives a sense of community. And a lot of times you get older, you forget that, and it's something that's missing. Necessity
No, you're
becomes
right.
the
And it's
mother.
all, yeah, it's just nice to have somebody to check on you in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Amanda from Texas is leaving a long marriage later in life. She's 57. What role does cash flow planning play in helping her decide what she can realistically afford?
We have to see what she has. And again, it depends. Is she currently working? Is she going back into the workforce? But most people, but I think particularly women, want to know what this is going to look like. And I think a lot of people also get confused between needs and wants. And we have to really pay close attention to that. I'm very big on saying to people, if I am working with them, particularly as a client afterwards, this is the amount you have. This is what we're going to grow these assets as. Some years it'll be higher, some lower, but this is going to be the average rate. And that's going to be helpful for them for planning later. But as far as right this second, Sometimes it can be shocking. They think I'm going to rent an apartment for a year and they find that the cost of an apartment is more than their mortgage and they feel I should just buy something. We really have to do things. And I think unless someone is extremely established, we have to have intermediary steps to see because they may wind up if they're working in their 50s, they may go to another location, they may move. There's just so many different things. But women want to know the number. What can I expect? So if they, as an example, if they're getting $1 million in a divorce settlement, which I know a lot of ladies would like to have, and we're growing that on average 6% a year, and we're taking out 3.5 to 4.5%, I can give them a number and then discuss taxes. And so they know that's the number. If they have to, if they think, is it going to be enough? It depends how you live. What can we do in the interim? Can we cut elsewhere? Can you work longer? Can you put more away? And so we go through it, and it's really an educational process. And ultimately, I may know certain things, but they have to own it. They have to own it themselves and come to their own decisions because ultimately they are the final decision maker.
What should Amanda be looking for if she's worried that keeping the house could hurt her long-term retirement security?
This is the most common thing that I hear when I have women come to a workshop. Keep the house. And there's so much emotion. As a matter of fact, I have a video on it. It's called Is Your Marital Home an Albatross? And in many cases it is. Again, there's so much emotion tied up into the home for a lot of the women, their identity, they built it. If the ex-spouse did something untoward, this is mine. I'm holding on to this without thinking. And of course, we talk about some of the ancillary issues as far as it's going to need a roof, it's going to need, it's a big house, even though the mortgage is low, you have to heat it, you have to cool it. Does it make sense for aging in place as you get older? And I just had this with a 65-year-old woman whose husband is 60 and ran off with someone. And she could have bought him out, but there would have been a cash flow problem. So, although sometimes women will say, but the appreciation is there, I say, you're absolutely right, but you can't live on the appreciation. So, we really have to decide. And this is a conversation I have with each person almost without a doubt more than once, sometimes 4 and 5 times. Ultimately, it's their decision. Sometimes I win the argument, sometimes I don't.
Same. Your boot camp for divorcing women is such a great concept. What are the biggest fears women bring into those workshops, and what do they most need to understand about their financial future?
The biggest fears are always their kids and will they, if they still have minor children at home or maybe a special needs child, and will they survive financially? It's a very interesting thing. I think as a species, women are more security conscious than men. And no matter how much some of the women I work with have, they always worry about winding up homeless or eating cat food. I make a joke about it because it really is a thing. I think the most important thing is that since after marriage where they may have not participated, they have to start becoming involved with the investment of their money. I don't have a single client that wants to be an expert on world finance or the stock market. My goal is to make them an expert on their family, whether it's themselves alone, a child, a dog, a partner, etc. And I think that this happens over time. And I think that when I review someone's portfolio and I either see it's out of whack or it needs some adjustment, I can say, I'm making this recommendation to you. This is why I'm making the recommendation. This is what it will do for you. And they start to get involved in the conversation. No ridiculous industry jargon, just regular plain English. And I think that women become a lot more confident over time. And I go back to the fact that desperate people make desperate decisions, confident people do not. So I think over time, as we meet, and I'm very hands on, I know all their stuff. I tell them, don't be shy. And I do definitely sit down more than once a year with them. I do regular reviews. And so they learn. And they realize they don't need to know the whole investment thing. I'm distilling down what they need to know, and that's what they need to learn.
In your experience, what financial questions do women often feel embarrassed about?
I wouldn't say it's a question. I think the thing they wind up being most embarrassed about is the fact that they delegated all the financial decision making. And so now here they are at this major life transition. And not only don't they have the answers, they don't have the right questions. But other than that, I don't think they're too embarrassed to ask me anything. I am going through the worst thing that they could go through. And they probably tell me more than they tell their friends and maybe a therapist. I think that just by the nature of what we do, and again, I'm dealing with women, and women, we tend to be more collaborative as a species. They wouldn't dare tell a man advisor some of the stuff they tell me. Maybe it's just me.
What are some practical ways that a woman can build confidence in financial conversations with her attorney, mediator, or spouse?
I think it goes back to one of the first things we discussed on this interview today, and that's gathering paperwork, the paperwork that would be helpful for them, because that gives them a head start. So many women will make an appointment with someone like you, an attorney, and they just come in, they're hysterical, they're like, it's a lot of noise without anything practical.
That's why I loved
So
your 4C exercise so much because you're right, that happens.
yeah, and of course, because they delegated all this stuff in the past to a spouse, and that spouse may or may not have been as good as they think they were, we have to educate them. So again, if they can put together some of the things that we discussed earlier, as far as the 4 sheets of paper and bank statements, everything else, but that's for the initial appointments, that anything that they can do to make an attorney's job easier or mine so that we can get to the heart of the matter. That part is great. Also, sometimes they have questions beyond what's on the paper. And they need to discuss this both from within their attorney and the CDFA, not their friends, not their family, unless someone is really, very astute. You can be astute and not be familiar with the rules of divorce. If in fact, one of the things that I have found is a problem, I just had one of these and it's not the first. I had a woman she just got divorced at almost 65. Ex-husband did well. He was an attorney. And although the retirement accounts were split down the middle, which was fine, there was just a regular investment account. And it had some really great stocks, but they had never been trimmed or rebalanced. And 60% of that account, of that 6-figure account, were capital gains. So, someone needs to look at it to see. I'm not trying to get too deep. Here she is. Her husband was an attorney. He was very smart. He made a lot of money, but this was a beginner mistake that happens a lot in portfolios that we look at.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. Somebody needs to look at it to see. And
Yeah.
it's not something that you would know to look for unless you were in the financial services industry or you were a certified divorce financial analyst. You wouldn't necessarily know that
Yeah.
mattered. You would just see the
Yeah.
balance in the account.
Yeah. And I had one other thing years ago, and I wanted to shake the woman. The husband gave her a bunch of pink slip stocks that they looked equal on paper. And the reality was it was a thinly traded position. She couldn't have sold it. If she sold it all, she would tank the market. It was just, again, have someone look, you're right.
Okay, last question. For our listeners who want to stay as amicable as possible, how can financial preparation reduce conflict and help create more productive settlement conversation?
I think that you have to know what's on the table. If you're both trying to do that together and you're sincerely invested, you have to lay everything out. I think I think a woman, again, though, unless she is pretty familiar with things, really still needs to check things out with her attorney and a financial advisor that is someone other than her husband's. Okay, she needs her own relationships just because. But if you really don't understand the character of money and what this means to you long term, you can try to be as amicable as possible, but you're going to start to know when you hit walls. I think by talking, for instance, one example, when you might think, all right, I need to go back to school or get this additional training. I might take alimony for a shorter period of time, more upfront so I can ramp up, or just any number of things. I think this is a very stressful time. Many times, people who once loved each other are not very nice at going through this, particularly with money. My goal is that at some point in the future, they can all sit around a holiday table or at milestone events for their children. But you can start trying to be amicable from the beginning, even I've had a few that have gone beautifully that I wish were models for everyone else. It just doesn't always go that way. So, no matter what, I think you still need to be prepared and have good information. And you can you can try, but verify with your attorney and a financial person so that you're not harming yourself. You really get one chance to get this right. It's very costly if you do it wrong, trying to undo it.
No, you're right. And you don't want to be amicable at the expense of harming yourself.
Yes, many times women do not realize this until a few years down the road. I've seen it happen. I've just seen it happen too much.
I want to thank Debbie Dorman for being here today, for sharing your insight and financial challenges that so many women face before, during, and after divorce. If you're looking for more information about the financial side of divorce, or you would like to find a certified divorce financial analyst in your area, please visit cdfa.com and look under the public resources section. We've got some great information for you there. We will also include a link below if you'd like to submit a question for a future episode. So Debbie, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to put Debbie's information on the next slide. So if you'd like to reach out to her, check out her boot camp for women, take a look. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.